Well, in the previous video, you'll have seen that I made my little console, and I was just using a couple of gauges I had on hand as proof of concept. So I'm going to pull those out, and I ordered a couple of new gauges from Moss. One is a clock, and one is a voltmeter. I decided now that I replaced the generator or dynamo with an alternator, a voltmeter would be more applicable. So let's get these out of the box and see how well or if they fit in the console. Okay, I've already removed the 4 screws from there, so let's pop that one out and that one. So I've decided to go with Smith's gauges to match the rest of the car. And here's the clock. Let's get that. Oh goodness, that's on there pretty, very snug. So there's the clock. And the kit is quite comprehensive. It comes with the bracket and the wiring for the light and some instructions. But my main concern right now is this going to fit in the console? It looks, well, we'll see. We'll check on that. Next, we'll get the voltmeter out. And again, it comes with a bracket, wiring for a light, instructions, and here's the light itself, or the gauge itself. So there we go. And then the voltmeter will go in right there. A little bit snug. I just have to check. Looks like the clock isn't quite seating in there. So what I may have to do on this is just take a little bit off the end of this here, or maybe even just put a hole in the back of the panel. That's how that's going to look, and I'm quite happy with that. I've got the voltmeter in place with the bracket on the back, and it snugs up quite nicely with clearance to the back. Now the clock is a little bit deeper, and I don't know where you can see that, but it's not seating. You can see that it's not seating on the face of the, there's a gap there where it's not seating. This is what's hitting the back. So what I'm going to do is drill a relief hole on the back side of the panel, and that'll give me just enough clearance for that. And I believe I'm good for clearance for the light socket. Actually, I can go on a bit further there yet. You can see on the light part here, there's a little rib or ridge, and that's supposed to go right to the top of this brass tube. So I'll make sure that goes all the way on. That'll give me clearance I need. And then I'll drill a hole in the back panel to give me that little bit of clearance I need for the end of that screw. Now, before I start drilling holes in the back panel, I think what I might do is just cut some of the length off this threaded section here. As you can see, I don't need all of this up here. The only concern I would have then is whether there's still clearance between the light socket and the back panel. So I'll cut this off first and then see where we end up with that one there. And in order to do that, I'm just going to put some tape over this tube here, because that just is open into the body of the clock for the light to get in. I don't want any metal shavings or what have you to get inside the clock. I'm going to use my Dremel with a little cutoff wheel on it, and I'm just going to cut off about 1/4 inch of the threaded part here. And I'm going to leave the nut on there so that way I'll clean those threads up when I pull it off. All right, so that's that. I will put the light in there. Okay, and I see that's all the way down where the lip on the plastic part hits the brass tube. And we'll see if we clear. Nope, that's not going to go. Let's get that out of there. And we've got clearance, so that closes up nice. So I'm going to call that a success, and I'm not going to have to drill any extra holes in the back for clearance on that. Now that I've solved that problem, I'm going to pull the gauge out, put them aside, and then get the actual box installed in the car. So I've decided I'm going to mount the panel up in here, and in order to do that, I need to I'm going to pull the carpet out and pull this panel off here, and that'll give me access to the bulkhead in behind. Now my first thought was I'll just drill a couple of holes in the back of that box and screw it directly to the panel here. But then I remembered this line here is the seam, and that is where the battery sits, right behind this panel. So I can't go drilling through there without making sure that either the battery's out of the way or the holes are going to miss. So it looks like I might be able to get 2 holes down below that line, but I'll have to be careful what I'm doing on the top. So I'll do some measuring, and I may just have to pop the battery out because I do have an idea of what might work there. Next step is make some measurements and see where we're at. Well, here you can see where the battery sits. I do have it in a battery box, and the battery is pushed off that bulkhead by these bump outs here. So I might be able to do it with some nutserts or riv nuts in behind there. I will pull a battery out before I start doing any drilling. I think that might be the easiest way to do that. One thing I will have to check is how deep those nutserts are once they're in the metal, and then we can make a choice from there. So to demonstrate the riv nut idea, I've decided to go with 832 thread. This metal is about the same thickness as in the bulkhead. I've drilled a 3/16 hole, and then there's the riv nut on the end of the tool. That goes through the hole, and push it into the hole and then squeeze. So unscrew the tool. So I've got my 832 screw, and that screws right in. Yeah, I did over tighten it a bit. There we go. So that's a good solid mount. So now I know how far that sticks out. I can figure out if I've got room between the bulkhead and the battery case to put that in there. So, and then here's what that looks like from behind. You can see how it's kind of squished up, and that just clamps that right in there. So it just pokes a 1/4 inch onto the other side of the panel. Now I know what I have to work with. I've been playing around with the location of the console, and I think I've got it to the spot where I like it. So from my point of view in the driver's seat, I can see the voltmeter on the inside of the steering wheel and the clock on the other side. Now with the power outlets and the switch up here being black, they're going to basically disappear. So now that I've kind of finalized the position of it, the next step is to get the back half of that console permanently mounted in place on the bulkhead. And to do that, I'm going to use some riv nuts. So there'll be 2 riv nuts in just below the battery tray and into the plenum for the heater, and the other 2 will be above the battery tray, which means I have to be careful not to drill through the battery. In order to locate the holes properly on the bulkhead, I'm going to cover the back of the box with some tape, mark the center line, and also mark exactly where these holes are, and then I'll punch the holes out. I'll then peel that tape off and go and apply it on the bulkhead. Now there we have the template of tape trimmed to the size of the back of the box. I have the center line marked, and I have the holes punched out where the screws are going to come through. So I'll transfer this to the bulkhead and then mark where these holes go. And I can use this method. It's symmetrical this way and this way, so it doesn't matter which way this goes, the holes will be in the right spot. On the bulkhead, I've got it's all taped up and marked the bottom of the box and marked the center line. I'm going to peel the template off the back of the box and stick it on the bulkhead and then mark those holes. There's the template stuck on the bulkhead. I've already marked the holes. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. If I peel this off, it'll reveal the location of the holes. And I've just noticed something. This line here is the seam between the floor of the battery tray on the other side and the ceiling of the heat plenum. Now that's right on that joint. So I think what I'm going to have to do here is just drop this about 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch, somewhere in there. So I'm not screwing into that seam. So let's, I'll mark this line down probably 3/16 of an inch and then remark the holes. I'll just put some tape over top of them so I don't get confused with those 4. Well, I dropped the line 1/4 inch or 3/16, remarked the holes, and I've got them all center punched. So next up, I'm going to get these 2 drilled out right away, and I know they're below the line of that floor. Then I'll move the battery and it'll reduce the risk of drilling into the side of it. I'm ready to drill these holes now, and I'm not going to take any chances. I've cut a piece of copper pipe to go over the drill bit here. Let's put it on that way. So that limits the distance I go through the bulkhead. And also, you can't see it right now, but I've slid in a piece of 16 gauge metal in behind the battery. I've loosened it off and slid it as far forward as it will go. And I've just got a piece of a zip tie holding that. So combined with the copper on the drill bit and that piece of plate, I'm very confident I'm safe on the battery. I've disconnected it with the quick disconnect here. So it should be good to go. I'll get those holes drilled, get the riv nuts in, and then get the back part of the console secured to the firewall. I've decided to err on the side of caution here, and I just removed the battery altogether. And you can see where these riv nuts are coming out. That's the lower 2 there. I thought they would be below that plate, but they're not. So the next ones are going to be up about here. But that's going to be still plenty of room for the battery itself to sit in there. I'll get the top 2 holes drilled, then I can install the back half of that little console. Well, I got the 3 of the holes lined up perfectly. So that one up there, that one down there, and that one. But this one in the top corner is a little bit off. I will just enlarge the hole in the case a little bit so that it lines up with that riv nut. So here's what it looks like from the engine compartment side. I've got the 4 riv nuts in place, and the panel is secured to the bulkhead. If we get in here, you can see it's secured down there, and I'm quite pleased with how that looks. That's a wrap for this video. Thanks for joining me. In the next video, I'll be working on the wiring and how to connect it to the existing harness, and also trying to figure out what kind of finishes, if any, I'm going to put on there. I will also have to remake the panel that went on the bulkhead there. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to share it with your friends. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget that little bell icon. Click on that, you'll get notified when the next video out. And please be sure to leave a comment below. If you'd like to catch up on the previous video where we worked on the console with the cardboard aided design, I'll put a link up to that video in the top corner. And if you'd like to see where this whole Bugeye project started, I'll put a link to that video down in the bottom corner. Thanks again for joining me. My name is Ian. This is the Econobox Garage. We'll see you next time.